Hello everybody, it's Hater, and today, with the rework to the mod system, thanks to Lightfall, Solar Titans as a whole has had their build department completely expanded. Which you know what that means? No more syntheseps.
Know your place, trash.
I'm kidding, but seriously, with the build we'll be going over in today's video, it's going to put Solar Titans over the edge. Not only is it going to give us a constant 71% bonus to solar weapon damage, but become a literal factory for orbs of power, never die with unlimited healing, and enough ability spam that it even puts exotics like HaterTheOne light to shame. But as always, for you guys' ease of use, there's going to be a dim loadout link down in the description for you guys to copy the build. And while you're at it, if you enjoy the video, then the best way to show support is by giving the video a like and subscribing so you'll never miss out on a brand new build video. But to get things started, for our abilities, we're going to be using both Firebolt grenades and the Baby Hammer. And for our aspects, it's both Roaring Flames and Sol Invictus. Roaring Flames, this is going to simply give us stacking ability damage whenever we kill things with our solar abilities or solar ignitions. Then Sol Invictus is going to take advantage of that and give us sunspots whenever we kill things with said solar abilities or when we kill enemies that are debuffed by Scorch. This combo is basically going to be the bread and butter of the entire build. We kill things with our solar ignitions or solar abilities and we create a sunspot. Standing in said sunspots heal us, and then they also increase the regeneration of our abilities. From here, we're basically going to be utilizing this as a foundation and build upon it. Speaking of which, let's talk about the fragments. And to start off, we're going to be using Ember of Searing. This is going to give us melee energy back whenever we kill scorched enemies, which honestly, kind of pointless when we're using Baby Hammer. But, you know, it could come in handy whenever it decides to play a good old game of Where's Waldo with us. However, the real point of why we're using this fragment is for the second half, where Scorch kills are also going to create fire sprites. These are going to be playing a major role inside of the build because not only will they give us grenade energy after picking them up, but we can make them start doing much more when we pair other things with them, which I'm going to get into later. But as for our next fragment, it's Ember of Ashes. This is simply going to increase all sources of Scorch stacks that we create 50% more, meaning more ignitions in the long run. Pair this with Ember of Char, and now ignitions that we create will also apply Scorch stacks to nearby enemies. Then to top everything off, we're using Ember of Eruption to increase the size of ignitions that we create. The name of the game here is to ignite everything as often as possible and deal as much damage with ignitions. Our Firebolt grenades are the first of many ways that we're going to do this, especially with how potent they are with this season's artifact. And I'm sure you guys are very familiar with them right now, especially in PvP. But with the artifact mods this season, Flare Up and Rain of Firebolts, they're just too good not to pass up for this build. Flare Up is going to make Firebolts apply more Scorch stacks, which of course synergizes with our fragments, Ashes, and Searing. Then it also spawns a free fire sprite just by hitting enemies with said Firebolt. Rain of Firebolts, on the other hand, is the real kicker because it gives us a free second Firebolt charge just for owning the mod. With Firebolts almost being a 35-second cooldown at 10 discipline, this is going to really ramp up how often we're able to ignite enemies. And since while we're on the topic of the artifact, there's some mods I do want you guys to pick up for the build. The first being authorized mods Solar and Grenades. This is going to cut down the price of armor mods, which we'll talk about more later when we get into the armor inspect. Then you're going to want to grab Shatter Orbs, so any matching shield we break will spawn an Orb of Power, and most importantly, Solar Surge. This is going to cause all fire sprites we create to give us 2 stacks of armor charge on top of what they already give, meaning we can completely cut out the need for mods like Stacks on Stacks and fully invest into 3 Surge mods for our boots later. Now onto the exotic of choice, and it's going to be the Path of Burning Steps. Its perk Firewalker is going to give us stacking solar weapon damage for 10 seconds whenever we kill a few enemies with anything that is considered solar. This buff is going to start at 20% for 1 stack and then scale all the way up to 40% at max stacks. Now, there is a lot to unpack here with why we're using this exotic over something like Heart of Inmost Light, for example, and it's because of 2 major things. The first being the ability to stack Surge mods on top of Path of Burning Steps. Just like before the mod rework when we had Font of Might, Surge mods are going to do the exact same thing and stack multiplicatively with Firewalker, meaning if we use 3 Solar Surge mods and have 4 stacks of Firewalker, then our solar weapons are going to deal 71% more damage multiplicatively. As for the second reason why we're using this exotic, it's because of a new interaction where solar ignitions created specifically by solar weapons are now scaling off of solar weapon damage buffs. To give you a better idea of what I mean by this, if we take an exotic weapon that scorches enemies like 1000 Voices for example, and we use it over at Carl, hitting him with a full charge without any buffs on the 1000 Voices is going to ignite him for just over 75,000 damage. Then if we do the exact same thing, this time prep our Firewalker and Surge mods, Carl is going to ignite again, this time taking over 128,000 damage. This isn't even including the base damage of 1000 Voices. All 128,000 damage is just from the ignition. This is why this interaction just opens up so many opportunities when it comes to what weapons we want to use in the build. And pretty much nothing's off the table. Scorch-based exotics like Prometheus Lens, 1000 Voices, which we just shown, Skyburner's Oath, Polaris Lance, Sunshot, Jotun, and even the brand new raid exotic Conditional Finality. All of these are both going to have their weapon damage and ignition damage enhanced by the build. But it doesn't even stop there though, because there's also legendary weapons that can synergize with the build too. Weapons that can roll the perk Incandescent like Callous Mini Tool, Cry Mutiny, and Zali's Bane are all great examples. However, there is also one other weapon that I think rules above them all, and that's the crafted Royal Executioner with enhanced Envious Assassin and Reservoir Burst. Now, I know I just preached about ignition damage being increased by our setup, but hear me out here. Yes, you can have Incandescent replace Reservoir Burst and just go on with your merry way, but why wait for the explosion when every shot is the explosion? Because you see, Reservoir Burst buffs the first shot in the magazine's damage by 25%. Then it causes the enemies to explode if said shot kills. With Royal Executioner being solar, this means we can stack all of our weapon damage buffs on top of it and make the first shot deal over 130% more damage, which I know sounds great, but again, it's only the first shot in the magazine. That's where Envious Assassin solves this problem. It's going to cause kills with other weapons while our Royal Executioner is stowed to pull ammo from reserves and overflow the magazine based on how many enemies we kill beforehand. This makes each shot past the first shot also considered Reservoir Burst shots. In other words, Envious Assassin is going to make it possible to swap to Royal Executioner and have over 12 shots of Reservoir Burst. But finally, to move on though, let's talk about the armor and the mods that's going to be in this setup. And all it's going to be about is spamming our grenades and abilities and ignitions as hard as possible. For the stats, try and prioritize both resilience and discipline to get our ability cooldowns as low as possible, then dump the rest of the stats into recovery and strength. Starting over at the helmet though, we're going to be using a solar siphon so our solar weapons create orbs of power, and ashes to assets so kills with our firebolts will give us more super energy. Then I also enjoy having a special ammo finder because of Royal Executioner. But if you plan on using something else, you can replace it with something like a hands-on or whatever fits your preference. Next up over at the arms, and we're going to be using both a firepower and a heavy-handed. This is going to make both our firebolts and our baby hammer create orbs of power and truly make us a factory for orbs. As for the mod at the very end though, it's a singular impact induction. Since we can constantly refresh our baby hammer just by picking it up, this is going to make the 35-second cooldown for our firebolt grenades even faster. Next up though, moving on over to the chest piece, and all we need here is a singular charged up. This is simply going to increase our max armor charge stacks by 1. Then for a little added extra here, I like using 2 solar reserves, but if you want, you can change them both for another charged up or any kind of damage resist mod. Next up though, moving on over to the boots, and this is where all 3 of our solar surge mods are going to be. But finally though, moving on over to the class item, we're finishing everything off with 2 time dilations, so at max stacks of armor charge, we have over 1.5 minutes of 22% solar weapon damage. As for the mod at the very end, it's a singular Reaper mod, so using our class ability will guarantee our next weapon kill will spawn an orb of power to jumpstart the build. Overall though guys, I think that's gonna be it. I'm sorry if this upload felt a little later than usual. I've been extremely sick the past few days, and just making a video has been really hard. But thankfully I'm starting to feel a bit better, and making this video was really fun. If you have any questions about it or a variation that you guys made, then let me know down in the comments. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to catch you in the next one. Bye bye.